This is a really intriguing phone for me. This is the iQOO Neo. This is the second phone from Vivo in the iQOO brand. You get some Vivo branded earphones with it. Why is it interesting? Because this uses a Snapdragon 845 processor. That is last year's model, but it's a very cheap phone. You've got phones like the K20 Pro, which are very cheap and use the latest Snapdragon 855. You have a phone like the K20, which uses a new mid-range chip, the 730. Then you have the iQOO that uses not a modern mid-ranger, not a modern flagship, but last year's flagship. So is this better than having a modern mid-range chip? It's certainly cheaper than both of these phones, even though these phones are great value and they're amazing phones. This comes in even cheaper, and Vivo say that the performance out of this is better than 730 phones. The iQOO Neo is unapologetically a gaming phone, so I don't know what the cameras are going to be like. So the price on the iQOO Neo in China is 1,798 RMB. That is really cheap for such a good processor. Even though it's a year old, it was until a few months ago the best processor for Android, and you're getting it in such a cheap phone. You get a huge 4,500 milliamp hour battery, 22.5 watt fast charging. Again, that's pretty good for the price range. First impressions on the design are, yes, it is a cheaper phone. I actually like that design on the back. I've seen it on a few phones now. The phone isn't as heavy as I expected it to be, given that big battery, so you've got to expect a lot of plastic around here. But this phone is all about the power to price ratio, giving you a very powerful chip for the price, certainly more powerful than other phones in the price range, giving you maybe the 710 processor, or even, as Vivo say, the 730 is less powerful than this one. So the design for me feels very similar to phones in the same price range. It feels like there's plastic around the sides. The bottom bezel is actually pretty big compared to some other phones, more expensive phones. Considering the Xiaomi CC9, a brand new phone released exactly the same time, is exactly the same price, I'd have to give it to the Xiaomi. Xiaomi concentrated on the camera and the design and materials, whereas this iQOO just isn't concentrating on the same sort of thing. If you compare it to the K20, the non-Pro variant, maybe the Redmi just feels a little bit more polished in terms of the design and the materials. Again, the Redmi feels a little bit thicker because of that pop-up camera, and it's a little bit heavier as well. Actually, the iQOO Neo has a bigger battery. I'm going to be comparing this phone against the Redmi K20 series for sure, because Vivo say that this phone for the price is an absolute powerhouse. We'll have to wait and see if that is actually true or not. You have a double camera system on the back. You have the main sensor and an ultra wide sensor. The front sensor on this one is 12 megapixels. You have the dual camera system on the back, but look, this is not a camera phone. It is not, at least, the feature that Vivo is pushing with this phone. They are pushing this phone for gaming. They are pushing the Snapdragon 845 as a very powerful chip for this price range. With that said, let's just have a quick look at some of the pictures out of this phone. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the pictures. Vivo haven't said anything about the cameras on this phone, and usually if a manufacturer doesn't say anything about a feature, then it's not great. But given that all these photos were taken in very good studio lighting, anyway, they compare to pretty much every other phone in the price range. I think the colors are decent and they look good. I actually don't think the images look terrible. You got to remember, the 845 is only 7 months old. 7 months ago, it was the best chip you could get for an Android phone, and it's in a phone that costs 1798 RMB right now. I don't think the images are that bad at all. Of course, in phones that focus on the camera, you are going to get better images, maybe if they have more expensive sensors, but this phone is not a camera phone. The night mode is decent. Vivo isn't well known for having the best night mode, but actually this is a little bit unfair. It's literally nighttime, it's pitch black, and this was pitch black except for the screen on my computer, and actually it's kept a bit of detail. It's not as bad as I thought it would be, considering that Vivo really are not pushing this as a camera phone. You get the game center when you're playing games here, for example PUBG. We can just go into the settings menu there. You can change a lot of the settings to make your gameplay better and more suitable for how you want to play it. You can see lots of settings here, including a smart temperature strategy, so that even when it gets hot, it won't throttle the processor, slowing down the game. On PUBG, you can choose all of the higher settings except for that very, very highest one. When I was playing PUBG, it was a really great experience, very smooth. Now, I've got to say, even if I'm playing on phones with a 730 processor like the Redmi K20, I also think the gameplay is very good and very smooth. What difference you're going to get in these phones is smaller than the manufacturers let on, but that 1080p screen was very good. I didn't notice any drop frames, and overall I had a very good experience with the gameplay. Unfortunately, it does have a mono speaker at the bottom there, no stereo speakers on this one. But overall, for the price, a good experience. So all in all, an intriguing phone from Vivo with this one. Using an old flagship processor is something that I've not seen before. It's a bold move because people like the latest and greatest. Will people prefer the latest mid-range chip rather than last year's flagship chip? Difficult to tell at the moment. I'm going to put this to the test. Speed tests, gaming tests, and camera tests versus the Redmi series and some Xiaomi phones. If you want to see that, subscribe.